staff, teachers, and students, I want to thank Excelsior for this outstanding opportunity. Today we gather to celebrate the courage and sacrifices of those who have worn the uniform of our nation. I am blessed to have been given that opportunity. Veterans Day for me, having served 20 years as a helicopter pilot in the Army, it is to reflect on the privilege it was to serve with courageous and valiant people, and all sacrifices paid by veterans in the service of the United States Armed Forces. Sorry, I'm shaking. My fields are going. Our veterans entered the military from different places and different experiences, but they each know what a privilege it was to protect and represent the United States home and abroad. They each volunteered to serve in this lovely nation, and they and their families all sacrificed something, some of them missing births and birthdays and graduations, as an example, during their military service, and some even giving their lives. November 11th marks the day America celebrates its veterans. Compared to other countries, America values and honors its veterans the most. Only a few other countries have their own dedicated Veterans Day type holiday. Veterans Day was originally viewed as celebrating the World War I veterans, but it's been later been celebrated for past and present veterans. America's veterans embody the ideals upon which America was founded more than 248 years ago. America was founded on democracy, freedom, and liberty, and veterans are the ones who sacrifice so much to protect these ideals. The word of veteran to Americans elicits thoughts of bravery, courage, sacrifice, honor, commitment, and patriotism. Veterans are the epitome of patriotism and loyalty to America. Veterans are willing to lay down their lives, protect America, liberties, and the democracy of our founding fathers. These men and women swear to protect the Constitution at all costs. They treat it like it's their own kin. Veterans understand the moment they enlist or are commissioned that they will be risking their lives so others can sleep without fear. Former President Ronald Reagan once said, "We remember those who were called upon to give all a person can give, and remember those who are prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice if it were demanded of them in the line of duty," though it never happened. Most of all, we remember the devotion and gallantry with which all of them ennobled their nation as they became champions for a noble cause. The nation will remain the land of the free only as long as we remain the home of the brave. This illustrates how important veterans are to the American way of life. Veterans show time after time that they are one of the bravest, most resilient crowds in America. Being able to endure physical and mental training and then actual service to our country is mind-boggling to the average American. Pledging your life to protect America from foreign and domestic enemies is not a task for somebody to undertake lightly. Veterans understood that they must make the sacrifice they do to protect the American way of life. It is no easy task for these men and women to go from honorably serving their country every day and sticking to an exact extreme schedule to transitioning out of the service. Many veterans experience various mental issues after trying to filter back into society. It is our duty as citizens to make sure the well-being of our nation's veterans is the top priority. The United States has been involved in 114 conflicts. These major conflicts include the Revolutionary War, American Civil War, World War I and II, the Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Gulf War, and the most recently, the War on Terrorism, which includes Iraq and Afghanistan. These also include many other wars and battles that go under the radar for most Americans. Veterans have served in many wars. About 41 million Americans served in the military during wartime. With that, about 1.1, which is about half of the state of Utah at this time, dying in battle, or of disease, or of accidents. Nearly 1 out of every 35 Americans who served during wartime has given their lives for the service. My husband and I have lost many friends, one being my husband's best friend. Veterans have stood on the front lines to defend the freedoms that enjoy every day. Freedom is not guaranteed. It is protected by those that serve. Our veterans are crucial to life as we know it today because they protect our freedom. They provide us a way to learn about our history and the world around us and risk their lives for people that they've never met. Veterans choose to endure long separations from their families, freezing in sub-zero temperatures, sweating in the deserts of Afghanistan and around the world, sacrificing their health, and far too often losing their lives. My husband and I experienced this multiple times. The last time, we were both deployed to Afghanistan, but in different locations. We were forced to leave our oldest daughter, who was sitting back there, with her godparents. And she was only 11 months old. She was well cared for, which allowed us to do our jobs. But we missed important milestones in her life that we can never get back. This was heartbreaking for both of us, which ultimately led to our separation and retirements from the Army. Some freedoms all Americans enjoy and sometimes take for granted that were given to us by our military. Freedom to worship as we see fit. Freedom to say what I want to say. Freedom to own a firearm. Freedom to move. Freedom to cause change. Freedom of press. Freedom to own our own home, and freedom to get an education. Unfortunately, not all of these freedoms are supported around the world. As an example, women in Afghanistan do not have the right to work, be educated, speak their own thoughts, or be independent. Today, in 2024, Afghan women face criminal charges if they sing or read in public, look directly at a man that they are not related to, or show or uncover their faces. With the current laws, women cannot travel alone or lead independent lives. Women aren't just banned from schools, they're banned from public baths, parks, and gyms. When they do dare step out of their homes, they can't go anywhere without a male chaperone. Can you imagine that in the United States? We as Americans have the freedom to practice any religion, express ourselves freely, and assemble like we are today. These rights are granted by our Constitution, solidified and protected by the sacrifices of our veterans. As Americans, our Constitution also protects us from cruel and unusual punishments, even if there's been a crime committed. Nations such as North Korea, China, and Iran restrict civil and political liberties of its citizens, including freedom of speech, expression, assembly, association, and religion. These governments often use arrest and punishment of crimes, torture in custody, forced labor, and executions to maintain fear and control. Our Constitution gives us the right to vote. Many other nations do not have that right, or it's extremely monitored. Even influenced, they get told who they're voting for. Our veterans have fought wars in protection of and enabling the opportunity to vote. It is important not only being grateful for these sacrifices, but also understanding that it is our duty as Americans to uphold the values veterans have defended. Unfortunately, veterans haven't always been appreciated as they are today. Maybe some of you have a grandpa or an uncle that served in Korea or Vietnam. Veterans definitely had harder times when they returned from those wars. The freedoms we often take for granted were made possible by those willing to risk their lives. I encourage all students to think about their everyday lives, from going to school, expressing your opinions, pursuing goals, playing sports. Those are possible because of veteran sacrifices. Don't answer this out loud, but what does freedom mean to you? I challenge you to go home tonight and talk to your families about that. On this Veterans Day, let us remember the service of all of our veterans, and let us renew the national promise of Abraham Lincoln to fulfill our sacred obligations to our veterans and their families who have sacrificed so much so that we can live free and embody our national motto, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I encourage you to think of veteran, not just on Veterans Day, but anytime you see one. Most of them will wear hats or a pin or something on their clothing. Always tell them thank you and appreciate the freedoms that they protect. Let us never forget that the freedoms we cherish have been bought and paid for the bravery and selfishness of those who serve.